Hey, this is Adam Torres, and I'm here to tell you that it has never been easier to start your very own podcast. At Mission Matters, our goal is to amplify stories that matter. That means we want to help you start your podcast because your story matters. We can do this in 3 different ways. 1, join our podcast school and take a free or paid course. 2, visit our resources page where we've already figured out what you need, such as where to host your podcast. Or 3, heck, we can even do everything for you through our podcast agency, including editing for cheaper than you can do in-house. Oh, and no contracts, service is month to month. Get started by heading over to missionmatters.com and click on Start a Podcast. All right, now let's get into the show. Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of the Mission Matters Marketing Podcast, your source for all things marketing. My name is Adam Torres. You can follow me on Instagram at AskAdamTorres. Keep up with my book releases, book tour schedule, signings, all that other good stuff. Always love to connect with you there. And as always, if you'd like to apply to become a co-author of one of my upcoming books, just head on over to the website, missionmatters.com, and click on Become an Author to apply. All right, so today I have Qamar Zaman on the line, and he is the founder and chief growth officer over at KISS PR Story. For those of you who haven't been listening to the podcast long, Qamar is a return guest. He's one of our published authors, was recently in one of our business leaders books where he covered a subject on marketing, and also been on the guest a bunch of times, and Qamar's just a good guy. So Qamar, hey, I'm excited to talk about what we got to talk about today, and welcome back to the show.
I'm so excited to come back again. Always fun.
So when you told me that you were launching this new service, or it's been out for a while now, I know it took us a little bit of time for us to get this interview scheduled. I was excited. I'm like, man, I want to bring this to my audience because I know they'll benefit from it, number one, but I just think it's a really cool thing that you're doing for business owners, entrepreneurs, and executives out there, really helping them, tell their story and push it out to a bigger audience, and that's a big deal. So we're going to get into what it means to build your brand through storytelling, but before we do, I don't want to assume that all our new listeners caught your first episode. So just to kick it off, tell us a little bit more about KISS PR, please.
KISS PR is a digital marketing company. We have been in the business for 16 years now, started in 2004. That makes me feel how old I am, but we have been doing 16 years of digital marketing hardcore, and I've been in the digital marketing space for about 22 years after leaving a corporate job and chasing my passion. So that's where I am right now.
Man, that's awesome. So let's just dive right into today's topic. So a new service that you launched that's helping get business owners, entrepreneurs, executives out there really get their stories told and to a larger audience. So just to start off with, maybe tell us a little bit more about the product and the reason behind it.
I'll tell you the reason, Adam, because I'm very linear. And in 2004, when I started my business, money was tight. So I was doing basic, small $500 websites. Then I started doing SEO. And to do the marketing, I started to do public relations of press releases. There were a few companies out there. I used them for legal requirements. I won't mention their names. So I used them, and then things were good. But very soon I realized that after spending thousands and thousands of dollars with these companies, they did not really treat me well. I always felt that I was the deal for the salespeople. They will say some things, but by the time I get the distribution report, it was not what it was. So it was very frustrating. And in 2008, I decided that I better do something about it, but how, and the whole process was not even clear to me. Now, what had happened in 2004, around that time, that the reason I started the business, because I used to live on the island. I lived in the Cayman Islands, and there was a major hurricane. So after the hurricane, I came back. I had a near-death experience, but came back to Dallas. And I used to have a blog, and I would put content on the blog. It was a free blogger blog. So I would put the content, and people would come and read it. So in 2008, I remembered I just had this, aha moment that, hey, what should I do? Maybe start putting my press releases on my own blog. So I went and bought a domain name, put a WordPress site. So I started doing that, and Google had just announced at that time Google News. So I got approved by Google News, and I started publishing my own content. And then when I had 100 plus stories, I started selling a story for $10. And that was the first version of what I have today. And I was happy with it. I was making like $100 a day. It was pretty cool. It's very creative. Money was not an issue. But there was one time that my partner called me and he says, we need to go to New York. We are meeting this big client. And what can we do before the meeting to kind of like, wow them? So I said, okay, well, what I'm going to do is tell me a little bit about the meeting, and I'll write that on our blog, or the press release, as you call it at that time. So what I did was I wrote a blog, got on the plane, jumped on the plane, went to New York City. So I boarded the plane at 6:30, and I published the blog at about 5 o'clock in the morning. Got to New York City, got in front of the client, and they were really late to come to the meeting. Our meeting was at 1. We got there at, he came out at 2, and the client was a big trial attorney. He told his assistant that give these guys the check. And we had not even proposed anything. We had not done anything. So my partner was more in sales, I'm not. So he says, well, what is this check for? He says, today we signed up a $3 million deal because of you guys. And so like my partner said, what deal? He said that you guys did something. He says, I don't know, but somebody Googled for an attorney for the 9/11 commission for the firefighters. They found the story. There was a phone number for me, and they called me, and I've signed them up. So whatever you guys do, I don't know what you do, but you're going to do it for me. So did you bring a proposal? And the proposal was $25,000 a month for marketing, which included, everything else. So we just took that check and celebrated. But it was the day that I knew that I had something significant, but there was more passion to what I did. So there's a Japanese term called ikigai, when you get paid for your passion and the world needs it, So I knew that I had developed that. And incidentally, my new podcast that I'm going to be working is going to be called the Ikigai Podcast. So that's what I had found. And I just went into the trenches and I just rolled over my sleeve and I started working on the version 1.0 to 1.2, etc. So what we have today is something significant. In 2008, we had just a blog with a RSS feed that was being captured by Google News. Today, we have 1,000 distribution partners. Some of them are Associated Press, MarketWatch, Yahoo Finance, just to, so we are in a green ocean, competing with the big boys of the press release industry, but for every story, I've done almost like 33,000 stories so far.
Wow, hold on, 33,000. Let's stop for a moment there. That's a lot of stories, Qamar. I didn't know that. That's a ton.
Yes, that is a lot of stories, but it doesn't stop here. So we kept on inventing, making it, but this was just a business, right? But what happened what got my Ikigai version 2.0 was when March happened this year, 2020, I was sitting, the whole country is shut down, and I felt that there was something I can do to help these people, because I do have the product. So what I did was I turned the system into free storytelling system. So if anybody followed the guideline, if they could follow a guideline, which was if you have something to say and you want to help yourself to get food on the table, and you are helping anyone with a COVID situation, I was giving them a $300 story for free. And in March, we did that. Since then, we have dispensed 1,400 plus stories. There's just an article published in Forbes. about that and multiple other outlets. So we have given away about $1 million worth of content in the small business storytelling stimulus that we have created, and we have really tried to help people.
Wow, that's absolutely amazing, and I love this. I love the way that you position this because I haven't done 33,000 stories, by the way. I've done nowhere near that. I'm at like 3,000 podcast episodes, so I'm still a baby on telling stories compared to yourself. And you're definitely my senior in this business. So sometimes when I tell people like how important it is to get your story out there and other things, like on my end, I mean I love hearing. Obviously, we all like when somebody agrees with us, but like the example you gave, I get those types of examples all the time where somebody like I've had people get jobs because they were on the podcast. I've had them get like business offers and deals. I've had them reconnect with people, and I just know because I get these random emails. I get an email like, "Hey, thanks so much for having me on the podcast. Like this happened as a result of it," and I'm just like, it blows my mind. So for those that are listening to this that aren't pursuing the idea of getting their story out there, like if you're Googling yourself or if you're Googling your business and you're not showing up, I mean, to me, like PR, press releases, like all these things, they all kind of work in this ecosystem. That's a great way to start building and telling your story online. Because in the past, maybe you just had your little network, maybe you went to your chamber of commerce locally, but now people are Googling, just like you Google something to see if this is a good business or somebody you want to talk to. They're doing that to you too. I tell people all that all the time. Can you talk a little bit more about like the importance of that online presence overall? Because I don't want to, from your vantage point, because I don't want to assume people know it.
Right. People don't. A lot of people, what they do is the very first thing when they start a website or start a business, they will hire a web designer if they have a little money, or they will give it to their daughter and son and build the website, and then they would put a blog, and then they hope and pray that somebody will see the blog and they will get business. But it doesn't work that way, Adam. What has to happen that why is Wall Street Journal so famous? Why is USA Today so famous? Why is Forbes so famous? Because they publish 1,000 stories a day. So Google crawls those. So the moment you position that story, it indexes it very well and fast, and people find you. But your blog doesn't position that way. So to build your brand and, like you said, to build the ecology of the content, you must say it well and say it often. I usually tell my clients that you have to do this like every single day, and they say, well, how? And I tell them that's what I help you with, and as a result, it's not just a law firm. I'm talking about, I've had clients that are roofers, they build roofs, they get business every single day. I get real estate agents using our system, and we have clients that buy 3, 4, 5, 6 stories a month. So it's working for them, and I pick up the phone and I call them and I say, hey, how is this working for you? And they said, Qamar, we were spending $1,000 a month on our SEO, and we have canceled all of that. Now we are spending $300 with press releases and storytelling, and this is working better for us. So there is a method to the madness. Now what happens is, I'll kind of break it down into ridiculous. Mm-hmm. So when you put a story, for example, let's say you are a roofer in Santa Barbara, for example, and you have a Santa Barbara roofing blog, and you put a blog there. Now, nobody sees that, but when you put the same story on our system, because we are getting indexed by the minute by Google, and somebody searches for best roofing company in Santa Barbara, our story will show up. Now, if you put side by side a blog versus a story that was in Associated Press, which one they're going to trust? They're going to trust the one on AP. And when they read, because people don't know the difference of paid versus free, when they see the concept of Associated Press, this roofer, it's in AP News, there's a great picture, there's a great story, and there's a phone number. They call you, right? And then ultimately that story also, because of the story has the benefit of backlinks and SEO and everything else, it also starts to rank your own website and the blog. So that's what we call brand amplification, you know. So that's what it does. Similarly, you do a podcast. Now you take the podcast, you put it on a podcast page, you also put it on, you know, your iTunes, etc. Now imagine if you did a press release announcing the podcast. It's going to be in 1,000 outlets, and those 1,000 backlinks are going to fire that podcast up. So when somebody searches for a roofer, they're going to see your podcast very first thing along with the story. So this really, really amplifies the brand, and it's all organic. And, you know, Google loves organic. When people manipulate Google, you know, it's short term. So I always think of storytelling as a marathon. It's not a sprint. You have to keep doing it for success.
Man, it's great and well put, and I'm a big fan of what you're doing, and I'm a big fan of helping people get their stories out to more people is what it comes down to. So, you know, we do what we can, but like there's nothing else. When I think about like spend and other things like that, there's no way to get out to that many outlets, and also time. Like how I know there's some people listening right now that they're thinking, oh, this sounds great, but is this going to take a lot of time? What is it like? Can you walk us through like what the process of working with KISS PR on these news releases kind of look like, just so people have a good feel?
It's very simple. So we have two platforms. One is a indie platform or a done for you or DIY, where everybody, you know, is a storyteller these days. So what they do is they write the story with our assistants. They call us, so we give them guidelines. They upload their own story, and within 24 hours, we distribute it. You know, as simple as that. The other platform is where they're busy. They don't know what to do. They don't even know what keywords to use. So they will call us. They will buy the distribution, and we'll write the story for them. That takes 72 hours, and we still do that. So we try to make it easy, you know. In any case, it's 24 hours or 72 hours, whichever option they choose.
Fantastic. So, Qamar, been awesome talking to you today, and we can go back and forth on this all day long because I love having a good PR discussion with you when we're on the line, but we're about out of time for this episode. So, that being said, if somebody's listening to this and they want to follow up to learn more about KISS PR services, whether it's the press releases or anything else you're up to, what's the best way for them to connect?
The best way is very simple. They can Google us, KISS PR Story. They'll go us on the first page of Google. They can go to kisspr.com, and then they can click a button there and start your story. There's a yellow button. They can go straight and start the process.
Fantastic. Well, Qamar, really appreciate you coming on the show today and sharing more about what you're doing over at KISS PR to really help business owners, you know, push out their brand, push out their stories, which we all know how important that is. And to the audience, as always, thank you for tuning in. Hope you got a lot of value out of this. If you did, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, leave me a review in the Apple iTunes Store. And if you're watching this on our YouTube channel, Mission Matters Marketing, definitely give us a subscribe there, but also leave us some comments in the video. Love to know what kind of projects and things that you're working on. And Qamar, thanks again for coming on the show.
Thank you, Adam.